Melissa, welcome.
Thank you.
It's really good to have you here.
What a
So,
pleasure.
yeah, just so excited to connect with you and learn more about your life and your work, which I know I've benefited from a lot. So, thank you in advance.
Mm.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, Melissa,
Likewise.
Melissa, I know you from the JVP Havara network. But do we know each other before that? I don't think so. But we just have some people in common in the world. Yeah, no. All right. Well, I'm gonna read your bio. Melissa Nussbaum Freeman. Her Goddess is a queer Sephardi Ashkenazi self-loving anti-Zionist abolitionist who uses theater, art, and ritual to stir the good trouble pot as often as possible. Passion is her motor. Her backup engine is a wild belief in the change that moves towards justice. And you can find her, you can contact her at melissa@jvp.org.
We'll put a longer link in the show notes as well
Okay.
to learn
Great.
more about her work.
Okay, great. So, yeah, Melissa is a mover and a shaker, and so many interesting things about you and your life. And when you started being in this role at Jewish Voice for Peace, as what is your official role name?
My official role name is Spiritual and Cultural Life Manager,
Oh, yes.
otherwise known as also Spirit and Cultural Organizing Manager, which I actually like better. I'm just trying to organize a bit.
Not try
Using
to live everyone's life
no,
or manage everyone's life.
no, I like the organizing better. Yeah.
But I feel like since you've
Nice.
stepped into
Well,
that role, that JVP Jewish Voice for Peace like has grown in these just really incredible ways. You're such an amazing community builder, organizer, and bringing like spirit and creativity to the whole
mhm,
process. I felt when you came into this role, like I felt so much more engaged in the work and also
mhm,
seen of who I am and what I have to offer. And I imagine that many other people felt that way too,
mhm.
with your role. And it's such a like important part of being like a spiritual leader is to recognize what other people have to offer and welcome them in. So thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, it's beautiful to hear. Sometimes, you know, especially in our online life, what send out things into the ether and you don't get a lot back necessarily.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so it's great to hear. Yeah.
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 Well, you wrote the piece about Elul, which is the final month in the cycle of the year before Rosh Hashanah. And I'm wondering if you want to share something about either your process of writing it or anything about the piece that you want to share with our listeners.
Sure. Um, it was so powerful. First of all, just the being invited to be part of this cohort for me was a real honor. And I felt like, wow, this is such an amazing opportunity for me to dive into a month. Um, and I could have chosen any month, but I
Mhm,
love Elul uh, because of the recognition that life goes on, you get busy, you forget about things, anyone, myself, I forget about um, the accounting that we have to do. And
mhm,
Elul just is this 30-day wake up call
mhm,
and invitation to get really close to yourself and really close to your, I would call it power in the sense of the divine. Really get that essential, deepest place. And, we have these great spiritual tools. The technology is there. And Elul just abounds with that technology. So just even using a shofar, I just love that so much, because it's just like, when you get into it, the sound really does just go in and stirs something on a very deep level. And, we could be using some modern, I don't know what it would be, but maybe you would get a phone call,
Blowhorn.
some electric, some electric sound, or some, it's kind of like when you're looking down at your phone or something, a stop sign, and somebody's behind you and like honks to wake you up to move, and Elul is that kind of like honk from behind, to move, to wake up, and pay attention. And I think, it's so typical, or we're our mode of operating is keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, don't stop. Well, we do have the amazing technology of Shabbat, so that's like built in, but this is like one big giant Shabbat. It's like not to stop everything you're doing in that sense, but really in that observant looking in and taking toll. So I loved contemplating that. And then, so that's Chesbon Hanefesh, the soul accounting. But then that really leads you to Teshuvah. And Teshuvah is like just, I think that's like the answer to so much right now. That being accountable about the injury that has been done, and what's your part in it, So I really appreciated the opportunity to just dig into that and think about that a lot. Yeah.
And
I love the way that you gave examples from your own self for, here's a way of doing this, like that, and just like so honest, and really naming Palestinian liberation and crimes against Palestine as like such a deep part of that work. Thank you for being so explicit.
And for people listening, the word Teshuvah means return. And it's the process of reflecting and coming back to who we really are, our most authentic, true selves, and is part of the process.
And to wholeness.
To wholeness, right? Yeah. And that's part of what Melissa was referring to.
Yeah.
I want to quote Rabbi Lynn Gottlieb and her work on Teshuvah, which is so deep, and she really makes a connection of what's happening on Turtle Island, or what has happened to indigenous people, to Native people here, and to Black people, and to what's happening in Palestine to Palestinians. That it's so. This is the part of accountability that I wish for our community. And when I say our community, I think, in the small of like the people listening to this podcast, and then outside of this community, like the Jewish community as a whole, like, can we really honestly say we're looking at ourselves, we're being accountable, we're asking for forgiveness, if we're not holding the standard of of justice and equality to Palestine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It just holds no water to apply that to everything but.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think I see that as the big work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And asking the questions like, why would people not apply that to Palestinians? What
Mhm.
is the level of fear? Why is it so great that um, that we can blot out our highest values?
I know.
It just goes to show how
I know.
strong the media programming, it was all planned out. Like the US and all the allies in World War II, like they planned this out of like, we are going to purposefully create this story about Israel
Yeah.
that and create
Yes.
this complete, undying, unquestionable allegiance to Israel. And then of course Jews all over the world are still like a very focused on justice and equity, but then because the program is so strong and so deep, and people got completely forgot who, because the programming is so much about fear. It's like, just be scared that we're going to get killed again.
And be scared even about like losing Jewish community. I feel like that's it's so damaging to feel like I'm going to go be with my Jewish community to observe Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but I'm not going to be able to talk about Palestine because I know that that will cause rifts that I don't feel prepared to deal with when I'm trying to have a holy experience. It's like, yeah, that's just it's damaging to our spirits to not be able to fully do teshuvah. That's not wholeness then.
Right. And I think having spaces where we can bring our whole selves, politically, emotionally, spiritually, every aspect of who we are, we can bring all of that to one place is essential to well-being. Otherwise, it's really creates this schism in ourselves, and I'm this person here, I'm that person there, I can't share all of it. I'm not internal lack of safety.
That's part of what's been so.
I think that's one thing.
Oh, I was just going to say that's part of what's been so wonderful about your role with Jewish Voice for Peace is like that. Oh, this is like an organized Jewish space where people can be spiritual, anti-Zionist, creative, activists, all in one place. And for me, the intersection of all of those things is my spirituality, is my Jewish identity. That's and that it's been such a small niche before this, like, it's just been like, oh, my group of friends for 25 years, but to have like more organized spaces, I mean, it's all really important, but that's part of like what needs to be creative to create. Like, I always say that about our work, and my work is like that it's about a culture shift. It's like changing the narrative.
Absolutely.
Melissa, I wonder. Oh, go ahead.
No, we have so much to say.
I was gonna shift to the next question. So if you have more you want to say on this topic now, you should.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was thinking that might be a good transition point to ask, what was your relationship to Jewishness like growing up?
So I grew up in a secular home in Brooklyn. My maternal grandfather was a cantor, but he also was a communist. And he worked in the garment district. He was a cutter. And he just loved to sing. He had a brother who was a rabbi and came from a fairly religious family, but he had a beautiful voice and he loved to sing. But he was very adamant about rights, and all he wanted to do was talk about the Black Panthers. And
this is your grandfather?
This was my grandfather.
That's
and
so
my
cool.
my grandfather was a Stalinist, which nobody understood, but my father was a communist also. And so I'm what's called a red diaper baby.
Yeah.
And there was no spirituality in the house, although I have always, since I was a little girl, looked for it. And my best friend was Roman Catholic, and I just thought everything she had was like fantastic, like church was like, it had rosaries and candles and stained glass windows and special gestures and, genuflecting and, just the whole thing. I just thought it was so magical. And I wanted the magic. I wanted that part of spirituality that is magic. And I just got, what you see is what you get, and this science rules. And so I started my own personal spiritual quest very young, and I connected with whatever I could, really. And whether it was from my friends' traditions, my parents didn't let me go to Hebrew school. All my friends went to Hebrew school, but they didn't let me go because it was Zionist indoctrination.
Oh.
So I felt very isolated. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that was also the feminist movement. There was a really rich community in terms of Jews from every kind of background, from being from Orthodox families to secular to first generation immigrants or third generation, completely assimilated. And we had a Shabbos group, and we just examined who we were, what did we know. And so I didn't have any kind of formal education. It was very eclectic. It was whatever I could gather.
Yeah.
But when my son was born, I was really interested in sharing things that I knew were quintessentially Jewish to me. And I think that's sharing that kind of showed that I did get something as a child, that I was then able to pass on, but or at least it seemed that was important to me. Although I can only remember Seder's being opportunities for my grandfather and my father to argue. As good food and arguments, it's days ago. But and even Hanukkah was, from my father's point of view, was like a revolutionary holiday of the fighting for the underdog. I have a really different view of the Maccabees now, but
interesting.
Yeah. One thing that I connect to in my personal history, my legacy, I think, is my great grandmother in the Ukraine was the woman who could read and led women in prayer.
Uh-huh.
And when I was in college, a friend took a picture of me and I had a kerchief on my head, and very much in the style that my grandmother, my great grandmother, because it was my mother's great grandmother.
Wow.
So Pearl, so
Oh, Pearl.
Pearl, yes. And my grandmother looked at the picture and she said, "Oh, you look just like my grandmother." And there's something about leading, like being the one who can lead people in some kind of important, that touched me.
I'm just
Yeah.
getting shivers as
That's
you
so amazing.
said that. I was so moved and thinking about the Eastern European and Russian women's tradition of tehines, this spontaneous prayers and supplications, and just mentioning your grandmother Pearl as someone who is leading people with those prayers.
Yeah.
And the way that we will like have ancestors with us our whole lives and not know who it is, or maybe even that they're there, but I'm like, oh, she's been with you and showing up through you, and like visually as well as like in your actual work. So cool.
Yeah. And I have a Sephardi great grandfather who I haven't gotten lots of details about, but is just keeps showing up in my life. Is just really present, is really a theme also. So it's like those two strands.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So your current Jewish community, I know about JVP and would love to hear more about that. And I'm just wondering if there are other places, or like, how does your Jewish self show up in your community now?
Yeah. When Israel started bombing Gaza in 2014, I had just moved back to Boston, and that's when I discovered JVP. And I was really desperate. I was just like, I have to do something. And I felt at that moment like, okay, I have got to step up as a Jew so that I can speak out with more authority against Israel. I don't actually believe that anymore. I believe everybody has the right to speak up, and I believe everybody should feel that they're an authority as a human being. And then as an American citizen, those are our tax dollars,
Yeah.
You have a right to say no. But at the time I felt, that's 8 years ago, I think 9 years. It was even more people challenged you more about, oh, you can't say anything against Israel unless you're Jewish, and even then, like questioning whether you're anti-Semitic. And
Self-hating Jew.
Say now I'm a proud anti. Yes, that kind of ridiculous, and I was like, well, wait, if I'm not really Jewish, maybe, are they going to challenge me about that I'm exactly self-hating? So besides the things that I already loved about Judaism and that I held as very dear, I thought, okay, I've got to dig in deeper. And then joining JVP, I was like, okay, if you need somebody to be in front of a crowd or to lead a ritual, I'm your gal. And so I started leading rituals that I didn't even know. So I had to find out about them, and I had to study, and there's nothing like doing or teaching to make you learn something. And I kind of took it from anywhere. And then once I was working full time at JVP, and I was asked to take the role of facilitating the Havra network. And first I was doing some electoral politics JVP sort of had a moment just before the pandemic, and then at the beginning that we were doing a big push that way. And then I was asked, oh, would you like to continue doing electoral politics? And I was like, no, that's not my jam. Well, what would you like to do? And it was arts, ritual and culture. And so I was given that title, and I had the opportunity to study with Taproot. And that was a year-long program for spiritual activists. And it's funny because I really thought it was for activists who are also spiritual, or like the spirituality that you need in order to be an activist. But it was actually being a spiritual activist. It didn't matter. It served me in a very deep way. And I really finally got more of the formal education that I needed. And now I can't say that I don't have a congregation, although I just found out about one that Rabbi Leora Abelson leads. And they are a rabbi who I love. They're a member of the JVP Rabbinical Council. And I know that they're a very strong anti-Zionist, but also just really beautiful person. So I'm excited to go and check that out. But really
Where is
practice
that?
in Boston, Jamaica
cool.
Plain, Massachusetts. Yeah.
Cool.
Because I think community is basic, is so essential. It's like, where are we building the temple? I talk about that in my little piece on Elul, that like, how's your temple? And is that your temple yourself, or is the temple your community, or right now I think of my Judaism is informed by Buddhism, because I have 30 years of being a Buddhist as well. Bon Buddhism.
What kind?
Bon. Bon is the indigenous tradition of Tibet, and it's what existed there before the Buddhists came from India and brought their Buddhism. So all the things that we recognize as Tibetan Buddhism, like all the beautiful colors, the prayer flags, the smudging, the shamanic part, all comes from the Bon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My Judaism's informed by my politics, also informed by being an acupuncturist, 5 elements, understanding nature in that way, being a gardener, being a mother. I think, just every part of your life just gets woven into that tapestry.
Yeah. And Melissa, you're also like over the course of your life, you've been a midwife, you've worked in theater, you've done so many things.
I'm still a theater person.
Yeah.
I know. Sometimes it's like, oh, I don't know who would believe all that. Yeah, well, I was a midwife. I'm still a midwife, but I don't practice. It's kind of one of those things that you don't stop being it.
Yeah.
Because it's a way of looking at the world and relating to life.
It feels like it's like a spiritual path, the way that you're kind of describing some other parts, and that this at the gates.
It is. Well, midwifery is definitely at the gates, and everything else stops in the moment of birth, and the whole world just drops away. But also my own personal path has been, I need to understand something, so I become it. And I study it and I become it. And so I needed to heal, and so I became a healer. And that path was through acupuncture and body work, which is zero balancing. And then I became a mother. But before I became a mother, I became a midwife because I was going in that direction. And I had to understand, I was always working with women. So, of course, I had to understand all the cycles. And so it was also menstruation, motherhood, menopause, crone. And then I was like, once I got to be a crone, I was like, I have to go back to my first love, or I'm going to be a cranky old lady. And my first love was theater, so I went back to theater school. And then when I was really needing to understand and stand up as a Jew, that's when I really had to study. And but spiritually, I've always felt close to either being a pagan or, just nature and the wisdom from indigenous teachings, and then mystical Sufism. The wisdom's the same, the vehicles are different, I went back to theater, and then I became an organizer, but I'm still doing theater. And I just did a reading of a friend's play about a abolitionist woman from the 1800s. And, today that we're recording this is Juneteenth. So it feels very, here in the Pride Month. Right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes.
It's also my grandmother's birthday. My grandmother's birthday was Juneteenth. Yeah. Well, I was going to say that you live such a big life and have lived such a big life. And it's really inspiring hearing about the ways that you embrace the learnings and then bring them into your life and incorporate them into your life. You're such a big person and filled with so much love and creativity and passion. So I'm curious, given all of this, how are you, we like to ask everyone, how are you dreaming the world to come?
I'm really inspired by abolitionists. So people like Miriam Kaba and, well, of course, Angela Davis is probably my maximum heroine. Sherwin. And then the women that I work with in Boston who aren't as famous, but are also equally inspiring. They just all say you have to live right now the world that you're imagining.
Yeah.
That it's not, there's no postponing. Abolition isn't just the lack of the carceral system. And that would be more like a result of real abolition. No police. Everybody has what they need. Respect for the land, for our resources, for the beings that we can see and that we can't see. It makes me act. Be an activist. Makes me feel like, no, there's no putting off. So in my world, my future world is today.
Beautiful.
I hope it gets better, but I'm really. This morning I was at I have a plot in a community garden in the city, and near where I used to live, and I love this community garden because there's 133 plots, and there's all these different languages are spoken, and all these different ways of growing things, and I built a mobile that several years ago, and it has tubes, and I hang things that I find. When I was a little girl, because I was told that there was no God, I asked my father if it was okay if I believed in Pippi Longstocking.
I was also
And
a believer in Pippi Longstocking as a child.
right, right. I mean, you find your models where you can, right? But one thing that Pippi taught me was to be a finder, right? She always discovered things, so she's always finding things. This mobile has things that I find in the garden, like a piece of metal and stuff. And 7 o'clock in the morning, I was there retaping, putting new colors on the mobile. And there was a gardener there, and he just was admiring, and he just said, "We need that here." And I just felt like, yeah, it wasn't just important to me, but it like enriched his life too in some way. And it's just like, so beauty, I'm thinking about beauty. I'm thinking about a lot of beauty. There's a lot of beauty in this world to come, besides everybody having what they need. What they need is also beauty.
Yes.
So, and Ruth Wilson Gilmore, who's just another amazing abolitionist, Dr. Ruth Gilmore, says, life is precious where life is precious.
Yeah.
So,
Amen.
Amen.
It's a beautiful prayer.
I'm so moved by
Life is precious
this.
where life is precious. Yes.
I'm so moved by that story. People can't see I'm crying, but that these little things that we do to make our world more beautiful really matter.
They really matter.
Melissa, thank you so much for making this time today and all the ways that you offer community and connection, and the ways that you've invited us in, and the ways that you've responded to our invitation. I'm just so grateful to know you.
Thanks for
I
making our
feel
life
incredibly privileged. Thank you.
Thank you for making
Thank you
our
so
life more
much.
beautiful.
Well, happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth.
Rosh Chodesh and Tekufat Tammuz, which is all this week as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love you,
Thank you.
Melissa.
Many blessings to you all. Oh, Rebecca, I love you too. I know you know me. I love having been part of this whole project, and thank you so much.
We value you so
I
much.
know you have put your heart.
We really value you and all that you bring to our world, and it's a lot.
Thank you.